And so we're understanding over these weeks what it is to stay in our lane. What is our lane? Do you know what our lane is as Christ followers, as believers? And do you know what our way is? Because Jesus defines our way. It's knowing this Jesus-defined way and his means that bring about kingdom ends. We can't make it up. We can't mix it up. We need to know what this is all about. And I'm seriously passionate about this subject. And it's so simple, really, as we look back at the early church for the first 3 centuries and understanding how the church multiplied at 40% per decade, right through to the period of Constantine. That they multiplied and multiplied. How they did this is they just simply stuck to the Jesus way. And the Jesus model, as disciples of Jesus, they were known as a people of a way. Half a dozen times you'll read it in the book of Acts. These people of the way, of a Jesus way, of a Jesus means. They went about doing that without getting caught up in all the side issues. Okay, so this is foundational. It's important that we get this because there is no middle ground. The Jesus way is not about finding some middle ground, not about compromising and finding a way to compromise with all the other ways and everything else that's going on. There is an overlap, and we need to understand that. There's a way of the kingdom, but there's an overlap of the kingdom into what's going on in the world, where we bring the nature of the kingdom, the influence of the kingdom into everything else that's going on around about us. But Jesus clearly articulated to Pilate, my kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom ways are not of this world. Hey, Pilate, if my kingdom was of this world and my ways were of this world, I'd fight the same way you fight. But I don't. It's a different way, and it's a different ways and means. Everyone say ways and means. There are a whole lot of ways. There are a whole lot of means that people use to achieve ends. But they're not all kingdom ways, and they're not all Jesus' way. And I want to paint some pictures for you this morning to help you with that, because it's absolutely critical that we understand our way. What is our way as the church? So we don't get caught up in everything else, which it seems to me so many people are confused and so easily do. So the first slide, the lanes one slide, if we can put that up on the screen for everyone. Here it is, staying in our lane. We've got the world's ways, the way of empire, the way of the sword, the way of the flesh, the way of religion even the Christian religion. Remember, Jesus didn't come to start another religion. We've got ideologies and isms. They've got fear-driven life over here, polarization, otherization, demonization of people, left and right, of sort of blue and red. That seems to be the way things have shifted from one way to another politically. But let's look at that as a picture of different sides, people being tried to be pushed into one side and one way of thinking. It's the power over. The world is the system or the way of power over people. It's the love of power. The kingdom is power under, that lifts people up by serving people. The kingdom is the power of love, not the love of power. In the world, people are looking for battles to win. In the kingdom, we're looking for feet to wash. In the world, people are looking for the beast. In the world, in the kingdom, we're looking to Christ. In the world, it's about the law, keeping the law, but in the kingdom, it's the way of grace. In the world, it's the me attitudes. In the kingdom, it's the be attitudes and the we attitudes together. In the world and the world's ways, it's condemnation and judgment. But in the kingdom, it's redemption and salvation. In the world, there's distrust, confusion and turmoil, which leads to division and disunity. But in the kingdom, there's transformation that brings unity so that we all would be one. Can you see it? We can't get mixed up in those ways. The way of the sword and the way of empire. The way of the isms and ideologies. We can't blend them and mix them together to try to achieve kingdom ends. But again, I'm seeing it all the time because it's a completely opposite way to the way of the Spirit and the way of the cross. The way that brings reconciliation and hope and peace and healing. Am I still on? Yeah, it's good. So let me paint this picture a slightly different way this morning. Here's another slide for you. Seem to be fading in and out here. Am I right? Okay. Here's a better picture which sort of creates the sense of this overlap between this polarized world, the way of empire, sword, flesh, religion. There's this overlap where we overlap into both of those worlds, all of those worlds, both sides of those worlds, the middle and both ends and extremes of those worlds. And we minister from heaven to earth, on earth as it is in heaven. There's this open portal of heaven over our life, this ladder, Jacob's ladder, that we see over Jesus' life, this sense of heaven flowing toward earth as we are filled with the Holy Spirit and begin to overflow as Christ followers, on earth as it is in heaven, with a radical cross-like love, the spirit of reconciliation, pulling down dividing walls that we'd all be one. And so there's this overlap and interaction that happens. But if we don't do that and we get caught up in other ways, this is what happens. Next slide. Here's what happens. If we start to take on some of the ways of this polarizing world, we add to the polarization and we push the boundaries out. We add to the fear. We add to the division. We add to the disunity when we're meant to be a completely different voice. But here's what happens when we stick to our lane, when we stick to the Jesus way, when we stick to the way of the cross, the way of sacrificial love. Here's what happens. Increasingly happens. Next one. Where are we? Here's what happens. We interact and we shift people to a place where this polarized world begins to shrink, and it begins to shrink even more because they see the kingdom demonstrated through us. They see a completely different way. They see a way of grace and love and hope and healing. And we shift people to a place where they begin to see the cross. They begin to see the cross of Jesus Christ. This is the lane we run in. This is the lane we're meant to continue to run in, so that we're salt and so that we're light in the world. Are you getting it? But do you know what that means? Are you running in your lane? Are you running in his designated lane? Are we running in the lane that we're meant to run in?